great synopsis of the research that's been taking place, and I think a very real picture of what we see for sure in communities where we're working in them. I would now like to invite Sohail to present on the challenges of doing research among international students, and again remind folks to put your comments and questions into the chat so we can come back to them at the end for all three of the presenters.
Hi all, and thank you, Tara, for a great introduction. I'm great to be here and to be among some of the great researchers. I'm just going to start by sharing my PowerPoint slides. Just as I'm doing this, just let me know if you guys are able to see the slides. So can you guys see my PowerPoint slides right now, or you guys?
I'm seeing myself in a PowerPoint view.
Okay.
Okay, PowerPoint and then do a screen share, please.
Let me.
If not, then I can do it.
Here we go. I think it's gonna work now. So are you guys able to see the PowerPoint?
I'm seeing a black screen.
So how, when you open up screen sharing, you'll see a whole bunch of little screens in front of you. Choose the one that has your PowerPoint.
So actually on my side, it says the PowerPoint I selected is being shared. So I'm not sure if you guys are seeing a different.
Sohail, I'll do it from here.
Sure, sounds great. Thank you, Professor. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Perfect. Thank you for being patient. These things happen. Sorry about it. So to start, hi everyone. My name is Sohail Shahidnia. I'm a PhD candidate at Ryerson University, and I'm studying policy studies, more specifically immigration, settlement, diaspora stream. Professor Ghosh, do you mind just going on to the second? So, yes. So the chapter title, the chapter that myself and Professor Ghosh and Professor Garrison that are planning to write about is the collaboration. You know, it's a development chapter that came through a discussion between all three authors that are mentioned in this, and I will briefly mention them as we are going through it. So the title that we are thinking of possibly proposing for this chapter, it is called Hearing the Untold: Methodological Challenges of a Social Resilience Approach to Studying International Students. Obviously, this is a working title. As we progress with the chapter, this may be subject to a change, but for now, this is what we are proposing. And the reason why we said hearing the untold, which I will explain briefly now and also later on throughout the presentation, is that hearing the untold basically means that we are trying to go beyond what the participants are saying and sharing with us. We are taking the interpretive approach to really understand what the participants are sharing with us and going beyond what they share with us. In terms of just a little bit more background information, so you can see how I will be relevant to the study, is that I used to be an international student and I did my BA in law at Laurentian University, which is a university at the city of Greater Sudbury. I worked for a few years, then I moved to Toronto and I did my master in criminology from University of Toronto, also as an international student. So just having that experience, just experiencing being an international student in a small city and in a large city, kind of like gives me that insider, I guess, perspective that I can bring to this paper or to this chapter, which later on throughout the next slide, I will reflect more on that. In terms of the authors, obviously, just briefly introducing them. Professor Gosh, I'm sure some of you are familiar with Professor Gosh. She is the associate professor at Department of Geography and Environmental Studies at Ryerson University. It is myself and Professor Raymond Garrison, who is also a professor at the faculty in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies at Ryerson University. And he does have, he comes with 13 years of experience in research design, qualitative data collection and analysis, primarily in telephone interviewing. So we thought, having him on this chapter would be a great addition in terms of studying the methodological challenges related to international students. Professor Gash, thank you. So in terms of the chapter plan, obviously, in terms of the limitation, it's supposed to be about 5,000 words max. We have divided the chapter into 5 different sections, with the exception that the learning from the field will be subdivided into 2 sections. So in terms of the introduction, so far, obviously, these are subject to change if one part a little bit have more information than the others. But in terms of the introduction, what we are planning to hopefully write about in this chapter is that we are trying to find out what is social resilience, what are the indicators of social resilience, and how social resilience is measured and examined in further detail. So hopefully we can capture that in our introduction. In terms of the literature review, obviously this is the part that is one of the key parts of this chapter. We are trying to focus on the reflexive methodologies in social science. Pretty much more specifically, how is it similar or different from data collection methods commonly used in grounded theory or ethnomethodology. We will be also discussing the data-driven versus data-centered approaches in documenting the experiences of immigrants, more specifically, what works, where, and why methodological approaches used in documenting social resilience. And that one we are trying to dedicate about 1,500 words. In terms of learning from the field, also, we are dedicating about 1,500 words, but this is the section that it will be divided to 2 parts. The first part, it will be 2 studies that will be compared. Both studies use primarily telephone interviewing. The first study, if it was completed, it is already completed, and it focused on the Indian international students in GTA colleges. More specifically, this project was funded by BMRC. During this project, we wanted to do focus groups and follow-up interviews. But due to the COVID-19 and the circumstances that have arisen as a result of COVID-19, we had the method of the data collection had to be changed, and telephone interviews were conducted with 30 Indian international students attending GTA colleges. In terms of the second study, which is still ongoing, we just started it. It is focusing on the challenges and resiliency of international students and institutions in northern communities, more specifically in medium-sized cities such as the city of Greater Sudbury. So this is the study that we are trying to understand more about the resiliency and the struggles and the challenges that international students face during the COVID-19, and see what are the shortcomings, what are the policy recommendations, and how as researchers we are able to hopefully shed some lights on that perspective. For this study, we are interviewing 80 participants using a telephone interviewing, again, because of the COVID-19 situation. 60 of these participants will be international students, and we are aiming to interview students that hopefully there are some French and there are some English, because we are thinking that international students and French international students, they may go through a different set of challenges regarding COVID-19. That's why our study is trying to capture both groups. And again, the interviews will be conducted both in English and in French as well. Then the second part of the learning from the field, it will focus on the methodological challenges. More specifically, It will focus on the questionnaire design, such as clues and insights based on what we are learning from the students and what we are changing and how we are changing the probing method. It will focus on the interviewing. The telephone interviewing, sometimes, as you may know, it is difficult because it doesn't give you that advantage of really seeing the expression and the body language of the, I guess, interviewees that you are interviewing in order to get a better understanding of what they are going through. And also, we are focusing on those being an insider help. So if you recall, I did mention that I briefly mentioned my background, and I said that I can be an insider to this chapter. And this is where we are trying to see if being an insider help. And we believe that, you know, when things are sometimes not told directly by the people that we interview them, being the insider, having that insider experience may become helpful, and be able, also the things that we went through, we may be able to use them to kind of better interview the students and the institutions that we are planning to use for this study. We can so obviously for this project, because we are saying the hearing the untold, we are trying to use the interpretive approach to really understand what the students are going through. In this respect, keeping field diaries is very important, and it becomes an essential component of these chapters. So that's why we try to write notes about the participants as we progress and as we move forward. The fourth section, it will be obviously discussion and recommendations, where we are thinking about allocating about 750 words, where it's pretty much a summary of everything of the chapter that already will be written about. And then obviously we will end the chapter with the conclusion remarks. Professor Kashi, if you don't mind, please go into the next slide. So far, this is the way that we plan that the author contributions will be going on. In terms of the introduction, we have dedicated this section to Professor Gash, and she will be responsible in terms of the introduction. The literature review we dedicated to Professor Garrison because, as I mentioned, he comes with 13 years experience in methodological challenges and in terms of the interviewing, using telephone interviewing. So he has a great experience to add it to this chapter. In terms of learning from the fields, which I mentioned, it will be subdivided into two parts. It will be dedicated to myself and Professor Gash. And in terms of the discussion and conclusions, all three authors will contribute. Obviously, the order of the authorship will be subject to the contributions of the authors and how much they will contribute to the chapter, and is subject to change. But for now, we are, as I mentioned in the first part, it will be Professor Gash, myself, and Professor Garrison. But again, it's subject to change. Yes, so this is what we are planning to do and what we are planning to discuss in terms of this chapter on the methodological challenges regarding international students. So this is where I'm going to stop, and please feel free to ask any questions or any part that you think is not clear. We also have Professor Gash as a participant. So if there is something that she will be able to assist in answering your questions, I'm sure she will be more than happy to answer your questions as well. Thank you so much for your time.
That was great. Thank you so much, Sohail, for that presentation. I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of the research